This review contains spoilers for the 2022 New Year's Day special. Eve of the Daleks kicks off the first of exactly 3 Doctor Who specials we will be seeing in 2022 to conclude Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall's run on the show. With the return of the Daleks once again, this New Year's Eve sees the Doctor and friends dealing with the age-old problem of a time loop. We've all seen it before, but this is Chibnall's attempt to bring that to Doctor Who with the Daleks. So, does this one work? You know, I had a good time with it, especially when compared to what just came before it in Flux. It's immediately clear how this episode is doing quite a bit right. I don't want to stay on Flux too much, but I think that this episode showed the importance of giving our main characters some room to breathe and focusing on them within the episode. Now, that's not the only thing this one is doing, but I appreciate that there is a little bit of time made for that. Of course, it's not perfect, but to me, it's a notable improvement on what came before. I'll touch back on the handling of all the characters in a moment. The Daleks are obviously the main threat of this one, and I have expressed in the past that I am a tiny bit over the Daleks. I do feel like they are seen too much in the show, and they really need to be given more of a break, but they are back once again, and they work fine enough within here. It's not as good as their appearance in Resolution, it's also probably not as good as how they were used in Revolution of the Daleks, but they are basically effective enough for what they need to do in this one. But I did get the feeling while watching this that there wasn't much new to be done with them, which is okay at the end of the day. I mean, they've been villains for the past 50 plus years. It's not surprising that not much new is done with them. But more so than that, the episode doesn't present them as intimidating or threatening to any meaningful degree. Like, sure, they're there, but they just follow you around in this building, missing hundreds of shots before eventually getting you. In concept, I really like the idea of having our leads trapped in this building with a couple of other people as they have to escape a threat. Not only can they not leave, but each time they die, they are given less time to get a plan together and execute it. Unfortunately, in execution, the Daleks just aren't very threatening. I know once again people are having big discussions about how terrible of shots the villains were in this episode. I really don't want to spend too much time on this, but I must say that having several people run down a long corridor as a Dalek fails to shoot any of them with all of the dozens of shots it takes is just, it really takes me out of the episode. It's too much of a suspension of disbelief, even for me, and I can suspend my disbelief a little bit. But like, come on, what's the point of the scene if it's just going to be this silly? If you want them to be intimidating and threatening, find a way to do that. This just doesn't work at all. I know this isn't a new thing, it's done in media all the time, but it does feel lazy, and it takes me out of the episode. There are better ways to do this and plenty of examples of shows and movies that don't rely on the villain being a terrible shot. It didn't ruin the episode for me, but it definitely took me out of the experience more than once. A lot more than with War of the Sontarans. So yeah, on the whole the Daleks were alright, I just think I would have preferred to see another villain used as the threat of this episode. With regards to the time loop, obviously this is a narrative device that has been used before. Groundhog Day is name dropped in here, though of course it goes further back than that, whether it be episodes of Star Trek or whatever was even before that. Okay, it doesn't matter. As long as it is used in a new and fresh way, I'm okay with a movie or show using this concept. I like the aspect to this where the time frame is a really small window that gets shorter each time, and I think that does help to make this one feel a little bit different. Sure, there's been far better uses of this narrative device, but here it works. So the actual story and execution of it within here is pretty good. There's points where it's really working, a couple of moments that hold it back, but on the whole I liked it. The pacing is relatively good, things move at a good pace, and that helped to keep me engaged in this thing. I was worried that rewatching it I might be bored, and while there were certainly scenes that I found myself less interested in, on the whole I found myself quite immersed and rather entertained. Talking about the supporting characters, I have to be honest and say that I was kind of on the fence with them a lot of the time. It does make sense that you would want a couple of other people in here for this episode, but unfortunately they just never quite landed with me. I was going a little bit back and forth, and at the end of the day I just didn't get much from them. Sarah and the stuff with her mom was a tad annoying. She was a bit of a rude character, and not in an endearing way. Nick was certainly a weirdo, and if I met him he'd make me really uncomfortable. I don't have much more to say about him. I get that the show is trying to create some sort of a parallel between this couple and the Doctor and Yaz, as Nick has feelings for her for 3 years without saying anything. Unfortunately, I don't think that actually adds much to the episode. especially since I never bought the romance between Nick and Sarah, and I never got much from these characters. And now seems like the perfect time to talk about the fact that Yaz does have feelings for the Doctor, something she has never fully admitted to herself. I never expected the show to go in this direction with her character, but I was aware of the possibility and had that in the back of my mind while watching the last couple of seasons. There are certainly moments in the show that have suggested or made explicitly clear that Yaz has strong feelings for the Doctor, and vice versa. They care for one another. Sometimes the lines between platonic love and romantic love are not entirely clear. I totally get that. So I think that it is entirely believable that Yaz could and would develop such feelings for the Doctor. Whether or not the show has done enough to show this is another element worth discussing. For me personally, I am okay with it. These things aren't always going to be obvious, and I'm largely fine with the show bringing it up in this way. Although, what it does reveal is the lack of insight the show has given into Yaz throughout the past 3 seasons. I get that she doesn't fully know this herself, but I still think that the show could have focused more on her character and done more to build up the relationship of her and the Doctor in particular. It definitely feels like there's some pieces missing here that could really make all of this stuff that much better, but what we get in Eve of the Daleks is not without value. I'm definitely reserving final judgment on this until we see where it all goes, but before that happens, I want to briefly discuss what could transpire. Now, here's the thing. Anytime a human has feelings for the Doctor, it can't end all that well. To my mind, the happiest ending they could ever get is if the Doctor has these same feelings for Yaz, and they live out the next 70 or so years together. Even then, the Doctor would have to deal with her partner dying in a fraction of her lifespan, but in terms of the relationship getting a happy ending, that's about as close as I can imagine. I think the more likely option from a realistic perspective is that either the Doctor doesn't share the same feelings, or that she won't allow herself to because of what happened before. We'll see in the next couple of episodes what goes down, but I can't imagine it's going to go particularly well for these two. Even though not everything was done perfectly here, I will say that I am glad to see more gay characters in the show. Yaz is clearly a person who is still coming to terms with who she is and what that means for her and her life, and I like seeing that because it's an element that was not present in previous gay characters like Bill, who was clearly far more comfortable in her sexuality. It's just nice to see some representation, especially from a show that in the past has had very little. Oh, also one more thing I have to mention, the Doctor's motivational speech really didn't work for me.
What makes you think that this is gonna work?
Because something seems impossible. We try, it doesn't work. We try again. We learn, we improve, we fail again, but better. We make friends. We learn to trust, we help each other. We get it wrong again. We improve together, then ultimately succeed. Because this is what being alive is, and it's better than the alternative. So come on, you brilliant humans. We go again, and we win.
This character has had some great speeches in the past, but this one not only feels out of nowhere and kind of forced, it also feels unnecessary. Sometimes shows and movies feel the need to include these motivational or inspiring monologues that actually add nothing to the piece and serve only to distract and take you out of the experience of the episode. Unfortunately, that was absolutely the case this time around. I really think you could cut that and the episode would be much better for it. Her message feels a little bit unrelated to this episode. I mean, sure, you could try to connect it, but ultimately sometimes it is best just to let the work speak for itself rather than to make the character give some unnecessary speech like this. Anyways, it's not that big of a deal, but it did bother me. Overall, this was an episode that I found a fair amount to enjoy in, even if not everything was perfectly executed. The story is familiar but still engaging and largely well paced. The supporting characters don't totally work for me, but I like some of what's done with the lead characters. The Daleks don't always land, but still work well enough to not ruin the episode. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but on the whole I think this special is pretty entertaining and a nice little episode to tide me over until the spring special. I had a rather enjoyable time with this one, and I'm going to give Eve of the Daleks a rating of 7.5 out of 10. And that is it for this review. Be sure to leave your thoughts on this one down below if you feel like doing so. In my last review, I promised I would give you an announcement about the classic reviews for season 14, so here it is. Look, it's not finished yet. I am still working on it, but I can confidently say that the reviews will start going up weekly in February at the absolute latest. That means that if I find the time to finish them all this month, you'll get them this month, or the start of them. But I can't guarantee that. So there you have it, February at the latest. I know it has been so long and you've been very patient, and I really do appreciate that. I really like doing these reviews, and I didn't want to rush them because I was busy with other things. So I could have just made them shorter than usual or done less with the visual component, but I did really want to bring you the same reviews that you would have gotten with any other episode. And in fact, generally, the length has been trending upwards. As I've continued to write reviews for each season of the show, they tend to get a little bit longer, which actually means that unfortunately that's part of why these ones are taking a little bit longer to get done. They're not crazy long, but they are longer than a lot of the ones I recorded used to be. So I'll let you all know when I have an exact date, and I hope to see you around for those reviews, as well as a review of Legend of the Sea Devils whenever it comes out. So I hope to see you around for some of that, and if not, that is absolutely fine, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.